Welcome to the Rural Blueprint, a podcast celebrating the innovative spirit of rural entrepreneurs who are transforming their communities. I'm Brad from Reinventing Rural, and each episode we spotlight small business owners and community partners who have built thriving enterprises in rural America. Join us as we explore their journeys and strategies, providing inspiration and practical insights for anyone passionate about rural development and entrepreneurship. Hi, everybody. It's Brad Attig here with the rural the rural blueprint, and I'm here with Carolyn Dooley, who goes by the name Kat. Kat is in Union, Oregon, and has businesses that she runs in Enterprise and Pendleton, Oregon. So she is in our far northeastern corner of the state. Kat, welcome to the show. So a couple
Thank
of
you.
things. I know, Kat, that you have a number of different businesses going on. Would you tell me a little bit about those businesses and just kind of a little brief background of yourself and how you got into small business entrepreneurship in rural communities?
Sure. Yeah. So my husband and I have a small courier company we started out in Pendleton doing like a DoorDash type of thing. And then it was before DoorDash was super popular. So it was wasn't busy enough for one person, or for two people, but busy enough to keep one person fairly active. And then it got a little bit too busy. And then we started doing pharmaceutical deliveries. And when we started doing that, we really got away from all the food deliveries and that sort of thing. And then we got into a small side on what they call LTL, less than a load freight. So we take a 26-foot box truck from Pendleton over to LeGrand, Baker City, Halfway, Enterprise, um, Aragon, Hepner. We have different days that we deliver the way outline areas, Enterprise, and that sort of thing. So
Everybody's pulling out a map now. They're trying to say, where are these places?
right, pretty much northeast, in the northeast corner of Oregon. But it's super exciting because we found a need with some of the larger trucking companies. They did not want to come over the hill, over Cabbage Hill, because that hill is not fun if you're in a semi truck. And so we stay under 26,000 pounds. So we leave and we return on the same day. It also just gives us a lot more flexibility. We have weight limits and stuff just like everybody else. We have to follow the chain of laws and the DOT and all that. But it really affords us to, if our driver gets stuck in LeGrand, he can hang out in LeGrand if he has to, if the pass closes. Whereas if, you've got a 53-footer, if they run out of hours, they are just flat out of hours and they can't move for another 10 hours. We've also helped trucking companies that get in those kind of binds. We'll meet them, we'll pull the freight off the truck, and then we will take it to the final mile for them. And so that's literally why we put the warehouse in Pendleton, even though we are based in LeGrand. It's just really to service those clients and those needs. So it was just kind of a niche that we found. And then as we branched in further to that, our largest client, MMS Courier, we've been working with him pretty much since we started. And him and I partnered up. I am the COO of that company, own a very small equity piece with that company as well. And that is a nationwide courier company. And we focus on radio pharmacy and pharmaceutical deliveries, small parts, that type of things. Really try to stay Sprinter van down in vehicle size. But we have thousands of drivers. We cover thousands of miles every day. We go to airports. I've got TSA certified drivers, hazmat certified drivers, so they can pick up the radio pharmacy. So that piece is moving fairly fast and rapid, with a warehouse in Seattle, Washington, a warehouse in Vancouver, Washington, Portland area, and then one in Boise, right by the airport there. So we've got pretty much the Pacific Northwest is where we're headquartered out of with that company. But we contract out partners all over the United States. That's for the transportation stuff, which gets a little crazy. It's a 24/7, 365, doesn't matter, if it's a holiday or not. My husband and I are both very dedicated to this. I'll be 43 this month. I want to retire by the time I'm 50. So my goal is to grow these businesses and then hopefully be able to retire in about 7 years. because I still want to go have fun and explore and do all of that. So putting all the hard work in now to hopefully make that dream come true.
Well, it's exciting to talk with you for a number of reasons, and I love this. How many years has this been going on? How long has it taken to grow to this size?
So I did not join until 2017. When I joined my husband's company, we weren't married at that time. We were just friends. When I joined his company, we were doing about $350,000 annually a year. We are just under 2 million a year now. And so we've been able to grow fairly quickly. And, with that growth was, we launched over in Yakima, Washington. We put a warehouse there, and then it was just too hard to manage so far away. And there's just a lot of crime, a lot of issues up there. So we closed that market, kind of pivoted a little bit, tried to figure out different areas that, different needs that people have. And, the nice thing here is we'll do auto parts, we'll do for contractors. They need, instead of them going off of a job or sending one of their employees off a job to go to Boise or Tri-Cities, we're already there running a route. So, we base it on weight and size, and it's cheaper to have one of our guys grab it and then bring it to them. They can keep working, and, it's a win-win for everybody. So really the business strategy, I mean, we really didn't have a strategy per se. We were just very focused on customer first. And that's all for the transportation stuff. And then we have another business, Monkeys on the Run, DBA Letter Wrap. So we had a friend that his company was closing in Pendleton, and he did all the car wraps and stuff for. And so I said, and he didn't want to move. And so I said, well, why don't we just buy out, the machines and stuff? And if you can do it, then we'll do that. And so we opened Letter Wrap over in Pendleton, because everything is letter buck or letter this or letter
Gonna
that.
say, couldn't be better.
Right. So we opened that, and then he ended up having to move over to Portland with his family for some health stuff. And so then we just kind of went through and figured it out. And then I cannot wrap a vehicle at all. I'll be very honest. I can do the small decals and that, but I then found an amazing partner up in the Tri-Cities area, Nick with NV Signs, who is absolutely amazing. And he's able to come down to my warehouse, and we're still able to offer all of our car wraps and stuff. So like we've done the Union County Sheriff trucks and vehicles for them. We've done the North Powder Fire Department, their ambulance, a pickup truck for them. We've done a couple of full color change car wraps there. And then we've done a lot of signs, a lot of banners, stickers, just kind of anything that kind of goes with that. And then we decided we needed to get into the clothing side of things. So we bought a direct to film machine that will basically it prints out. It's a huge commercial machine that will print all of the transfers that you can then do. There's no limits, no color limits, nothing like that. So it's kind of the new up and coming screen print. And so we bought that, and then we got a UV one so we can do, smaller stickers and decals for windows and that sort of thing, that we don't have to do any weeding, and can go on mugs and all kinds of stuff. So we've got that going, and we basically rolled Letter Wrap under the Monkeys on the Run, because I'm just one big monkey, and I just think it's fun, it's playful. People are going to remember that. So for me, I'm all about the fun. I know it literally says nothing about the business. Like if you saw Monkeys on the Run, you would not think it was a car wrapping, graphic design, shirt business. And then last month, so March 1, we purchased Grand Ron Embroidery and rolled that into the fold of Monkeys on the Run. So now we can offer embroidery. So we pretty much can be that one-stop shop for whoever, well, for any of their marketing needs, clothing needs, birthdays, anniversaries, parties. We can do all of that. So really just expanding, putting things together. I mean, we've made a lot of investments because we know long term it will pay off.
So in my notes, I have Rob's Speedy Delivery. Was that the original beginning of your delivery business?
Yes.
Okay. So should we give Rob any credit at all for any of this, or is that your husband?
Absolutely. So most everybody knows my husband in town. He was born with Fader syndrome. So he has like little half arms. And so this guy, I will tell you, he is probably one of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life, and so tenacious. And I mean, he doesn't let anything get in his way. There's times I'll come home and I'm like, why are you putting that away? He'll climb on a ladder to put up, something up on a higher shelf instead of waiting for me to get home. Or, he's at the warehouse moving boxes around. And I'm like, we have employees. Other people can, I don't want to wait. I'm just going to get it done. I mean, he's just a real go-getter. And, he has a master's degree in business from Eastern Oregon University.
Great.
And he's incredible. So like the two of us together, we work really well, because where I'm weak, he's very strong, and where he's weak, I'm really strong. So the two of us, it's just, it definitely takes a team to be able to make all of this happen.
That makes for a great team. And it's exciting to talk with you, because a lot of times in rural, people are saying it's really hard to make a business or start a business that you can grow. You start and look and say, okay, we started out with kind of a DoorDash alternative even before DoorDash was DoorDash. And you've grown this into this intermodal transportation delivery system that is, filling last mile delivery in a lot of cases and big needs. And by doing that, you're reducing the cost for a lot of other small businesses and mid-sized businesses in their region. And now you've gone even national and grown a $2 million business out of this through addressing needs in the community and in the area. And I love to see how that evolution of a business can evolve. And then I love to see, even with the Monkeys on the Run, where it's like, hey, here's an opportunity. It's something you probably didn't know a lot about car wrapping when you got started, right? You jumped in, and now you've got wrapping, and you've got DTF, and you've got embroidery, and you've got all this branding. And these are resources that so many in rural communities, it's so hard to find and access and get to and get local experience. You can go online and buy something from some large printer or something. You never quite know what's going to show up. And I love that too. Tell me a little bit about what it's like doing business in rural communities from your perspective.
So there are different challenges. Sometimes it's more expensive to get items shipped here. It can be harder because it's a smaller market. So I'm not from the area. I grew up in Colorado, but I grew up in a very small town in Colorado. And so, I mean, I was a rural girl anyway, but you have to make relationships with folks. And what I always explain to people when I'm talking to them about business is, you make a relationship first, and then you worry about business second, and finances third. And, some people they think I'm crazy, but I think it's most important to cultivate a relationship with somebody and get to know that person, know their kids, know their birthdays, that's one thing that I will say is I'm very active in the community. I threw myself into, when I first moved here, the chamber, and then LeGrand Main Street. I'm on the board now with LeGrand Main Street. Most of the community knows who I am. I go to all kinds of fundraisers, and I try to donate as much as I can. I'm extremely active, but you have to put yourself out there, and you literally have to be able to, I hate to say it, but not have much of a personal life. Like, your personal life is your business. And that is going to the social events that, like the Hospital Foundation has an upcoming fundraiser on the 5th. Loveland Funeral Chapel, that have their Safe Ride program, which is incredible. Their fundraisers on the 10th of May. I go into our local barber shop. They're all friends of mine. I chat with them, make relationships with people. And then they want to know, like, what do you do? Well, what's going on? And a lot of people know my husband and I, we have bright orange cars that stand out. And so we stand out in the community, but you have to be able to make a difference and make your own footprint. And I just feel the best way to make a footprint is really just cultivating those relationships with folks. And, you're going to have those challenges. Shipping takes an extra 3 weeks to get here. We can't be Amazon, and our pricing I can't compete with China, and I can't compete with on pricing. And most of the time you're going to spend a little bit more to shop local. I would much rather support a local person and a local shop and pay a few dollars more, knowing that, my friend's daughter is going to be able to go to her dance lessons because I'm supporting that business. And so I think a lot of times we kind of miss the boat when we can provide way better service than an internet. If somebody's just looking for clicking a button, ordering something, then that's what they're gonna go for. They're gonna go for that lower price. Sometimes we can compete, and sometimes we're even faster. We can be a little bit lower. It just kind of varies. So, it's a daunting task when you're first looking at it. I want to start a business now. But once you get in it, and you just have to be tenacious. I mean, you just have to and you have to, I always say that, no means next opportunity. It doesn't always mean no. And, it doesn't mean I'm going to be beating on their door every time I turn around. But if I see them at an event, hey, how's it going? How's everything looking for you? You build that relationship. And then eventually, when they have a need, they're going to come to you and say, hey, can you do X, Y, and Z for me? Or, and, we try to make the impossible happen. So, somebody needs something last minute, and we try really hard to accommodate that. I mean, the weather with some like the signs and windows and stuff like that, that can get a little daunting, because if the weather isn't great, then the vinyl doesn't like to stick. So there's a few challenges that we'll deal with, but not terrible.
I think you said a few things that I think that I just want to reemphasize. One is that, in rural, you're working in your community a lot. So work isn't necessarily the same kind of work as getting up and driving 20 miles and going to some place and then turning around and going back. Work, family, community, faith, it's all intersected. So sometimes what you're doing for work really isn't even work. And sometimes what you're doing with family or at a sporting events or fundraisers or anything else is work, but it isn't work in a way. And I love that. And that's, I think, why so many people choose to, live in rural and choose to start businesses in rural is that it's a different dynamic. I think that's one great thing. The second thing, you keep emphasizing about customer first, and I want to get to that a little bit because I want to talk about co-starters, but focusing on your customer and their needs and what their problems are and how do you solve their problems is a critical pathway for success. And obviously you're successful, and we see that. I also love your involvement in the organizations, because in our rural communities, we lack a lot of resources and experience. So everybody has to kind of pick up a little bit more. I just had a conversation yesterday with the Grand Economic Development, Timothy Bishop, about how we can do more around the Kiva U.S. loans. And you just had a third Kiva U.S. loan successfully fund yesterday, Emily with Wallawa Wild, who is just raised funds for her drip irrigation system for her micro farm. And so it's like, how do we get even more involvement or wrapped around this so the community support it? And then the fourth thing is you talked about spending money locally. And I still think, a dollar spent and retained in a rural community is like $3.50. Okay. And it's really important to understand. You mentioned it about, I want to buy something or I want to support someone where my daughter's going to dance class or something like that. I want to be able to support local, because we have to keep dollars within our economic systems. There's been so much push for traded sector businesses, and traded sector businesses are great, bringing money into the community. But if all your money coming to the community is leaking back out of the community, it really isn't keeping our small rural towns strong, and our Main Street businesses. Driving through small rural communities and having lots of empty buildings on Main Street looks like the community's out of business. You took co-starters. So you took co-starters up there with Lisa Dawson, Northeastern Oregon Economic Development District, NEOEDD. Tell me a little bit about that experience, because you've got co-starters is more for businesses that are just starting or potentially looking to pivot and things. You had a successful business and you took co-starters. Tell me about what you gained from that and how that impacted you.
So, we weren't sure what to expect when we first signed up. My husband and I both did it because I said, he wanted to find out about maybe some government grants and some different things like that. And so we thought, it'll be worth going to. We have a lot of experience. What I think we gained is our relationship with Lisa is phenomenal. I can say she knows her stuff. And then we've been able to help support, like if she's got a business that has some questions or somebody that's just wanting to start, she'll say, hey, can I give them your information? And absolutely. So really be able to kind of help Lisa, just to be able to talk to people from a business side. But it was also interesting, we learned some stuff on the legality side, and it wasn't a gangbuster thing for us, but what it was a great way to connect and then be able to ultimately, my goal, especially with Monkeys on the Run, is to be able to help smaller businesses market themselves affordably. They don't need to buy 15 shirts to be able to get a reasonable price. They can buy one or two. Or if they want to market with a magnet or a car decal or something, I really want to work with them because I want these small businesses to be very successful. And you have to have, marketing is it's just an expense, right? There's no revenue really to offset your marketing costs. And so it's hard when somebody's looking at starting a new business. They don't know what that ROI is going to be for them. It could be huge. I mean, my husband, Orange and Black, marketed our cars up the yin yang, and everybody knows our vehicles. So everybody knows Rob Speedy. But that was an investment that he felt was super important that paid off. But when you're talking to somebody who says, look, I've got $1,000 to start this business and I can't spend $2,000 to wrap my vehicle. So it's just things like that, looking at other ways to help market them, to get them started is so, so important. And so that's a real passion of mine is I want small businesses to be successful. So connecting with Lisa and going through that program and just seeing how the business maps out and how you do your plan. And, really, I just feel like that is just super, super important. And anybody that wants to start a small business should absolutely take those courses. I feel like they're just great. I also did the destination. She did a thing where there's a video making your business a destination business. And so that's also like, there's so many resources, even if you're a senior business or you're just starting. I can pick up the phone today and call Lisa and say, hey, I've got a quick question. And she 99.9% of the time will have a resource, or I can call Timothy, and I mean, it's just connecting constantly with those folks and then being able to celebrate with the small businesses that are starting. And when they do have those challenges, being there to help them. I mean, we all have to help each other and be resources for each other.
Yeah, well, Co-Starters Core is a cohort-based program, so you really do bond with everybody that you go through. You're spending 9, 10, 11 weeks with people, 3 hours a night. You went through with a couple starters, right? If I remember right. I think Liz, the compost chick, was she in your cohort? Monica with lavender?
Was one ahead of us.
One ahead of you, okay.
Monica with lavender was in ours.
Right. Okay.
Yep, and Liz was one ahead of us, but we've been pretty good friends with Liz, and we actually just got to wrap her van. So when she got her van through Kiva, she did the Kiva funding, got her van, and then she's just doing amazing. Like, that girl is just incredible, and I just love her tenacity. She's got her marketing plan down. She knows her stuff. She is an amazing success story. Monica's another one. She's now in the Dells with her lavender farm. She also has her shop there in the Marketplace Underground, which we're actually joining them as well we're doing a souvenir shop down in the Marketplace Underground. We're launching May 3rd. But yeah, I mean, Monica, huge success story there. Just, I love when people follow their passions and their dreams, because that's typically when amazing things happen. But you've got to be able to put the work in first before it, you got to be dedicated to it.
One of the things for you is coming through Co-Starters, we need to we have to grow them locally. We have to grow mentors locally. Okay. We have to have mentorship, and we're going to be continuing with helping support the delivery of Co-Starters. When we brought Co-Starters to Oregon, we didn't know it would work. And the first 2 communities that we did it in, we were still under COVID protocols. We did them virtually. We did one. Lisa did one in the Grand virtually, and we did one down in Burns virtually. And when I reached out to Co-Starters and said, hey, we'd like to bring Co-Starters to Oregon, they were like, great, Portland, Eugene, what about Bend? We like Bend. I'm like, Burns and the Grand, and I could literally hear them typing on their computer trying to figure out where they were. And it's been such a successful program. We have well over 400 graduates. Success rates are great. It also helps, I think, get rid of a lot of the stuff. When you're a startup entrepreneur, everybody's kind of shooting on you. You should do this, you should do that. And I think it really helps condense down. And then your engagement and involvement in it, and being able to come back as a mentor, being able to come back and share, as well as provide great resources with your branding, affordable branding, because marketing from a Co-Starter's perspective and our perspective is know, like, trust. Okay. They got to know you. They got to hear about you. What better way than you're on a hat, you're on a window cling, your car drives by with a wrap, you've got a t-shirt on. People are like, what's that? What does it do? I mean, just like your your business's name, Monkeys on the Run. What's Monkeys on the Run? Oh, now I can tell you about what we do. Oh, my cousin needs t-shirts. I love how that works. You're also very involved and about community involvement. You mentioned some things. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I guess I just feel like the community gives to our, they use us as a business owner. We want to give back. So we try to support wherever we can. This last year, my tax accountant looked at me and she says, "Oh my goodness, you donated, just around $100,000 between product and financial donations and different things like that." And that's not a small thing for a small business. I can tell you Monkeys on the Run didn't even make that last year. And I have some funds from, various things that I do, different jobs and different things. And so for me, it was just like, it's so, so important to make sure that we are supporting our community 150%. So, it's why I'm on the board with LeGrand Main Street. I feel very passionate about our Main Street program. If we're able to help businesses that want to start up in downtown LeGrand, we're able to support each other. The chamber is another great way to get involved. They do the after hours and all of that. And it seems like we have a lot of, there's a lot of places out there that need funding and that need help. And, you can't do everything, but if you're out in the community and you're working with folks, you're just building those relationships stronger and stronger. And I just feel like the community involvement it's a vital part of any business owner. You have to be willing to go out there and, put up no parking signs or check people in at a 5K, 10K race or, whatever you name it, whether it's picking up the trash. I mean, and then sometimes it's just standing there talking to people on behalf of an organization. But the more that you're out there in your community, the more people are going to start saying, what do you do? Oh, let me, hey, I need this done, or I need that done, or, hey, can you pick up this part for me down in Boise? I don't want to have to drive that far. Or, I mean, it's just random things. You're eating at a restaurant and people come up to you and they're like, "Hey, don't you have this? And, by the way, I really need to get this out of the Tri-Cities. Can you handle that?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can get it tomorrow morning. No problem." So it's just the community involvement is just vital to a business owner. I mean, you kind of, I always say you get you get out of something what you put into something. Because we're so active in our community has been very good to us, and we feel very fortunate for that. We just absolutely, we love our community, and they're small,
Yeah,
which is
I love your
awesome.
communities. A couple years back, Lisa, I got a call from Catherine Creek Community Center. Okay. And they were like, "Hey, we got this Thriving Entrepreneurs Grant. We're not sure what to do with it." I'm like, "Let me reach out to Lisa at NEOEDD. Let's come up and do something. Let's do a co-starters in Union." And these tiny towns in the middle of, 20 miles from here, 20 miles from there, and being able to bring these resources here, had a great time there. I also know that you're really interested in mentoring young entrepreneurs. So I want to put a bug in your ear. Co-Starters has a program called Generator. Generator is a youth entrepreneurship program. It is, in my mind, one of the best programs. And what I love about it is that it starts out with helping young entrepreneurs understand what they love to do and figuring out if they can do businesses around it. Second part is really understanding how they work and how other people work. And so they can understand how to build teams. And you mentioned how important, your teamwork with you and your husband and how that synergistic relationship has been so great for the success of your business, complementing each other's strengths. And it teaches that. And then the third part literally goes in and takes them through the business model canvas in a different way than what you would have gone through in CORE. And then the fourth part is the serious, if you really do want to launch a business. And it can be taken apart and used in modules. And we've used it with the Madras High School, with the Tribal Business Club there. We're going to be doing some stuff in Heppner later this month with that as well. So I just want to put that bug in your ear that there is a phenomenal resource there that can be kind of taken apart and used in multiple ways. So in closing here, what's something about rural entrepreneurship that you wish more people understood?
I know I've talked a lot about relationship building, but you pretty much have to be married to your business, married to the idea of, and your spouse has to be supportive. If the two of you are not in it together, and I'm super blessed to have a husband that is a entrepreneur as well, and that at 10 o'clock at night when we're both making t-shirts because, our day just went kind of crazy, You have to be dedicated to every aspect, and you're always representing your business and who you are. You have to be able to kind of say, okay, you know what? My personal life is on hold for a while. I'm going to just focus on building a business. And, so really relationship. That's really what it all comes down to. And always go above and beyond. Try to exceed the expectations of the customer. And if a mistake happens, make it right, whether it's your mistake or the customer's mistake. So, I've seen all too many times where a customer will send a wrong file or something will go wrong, and it's 100% on the customer, but I will eat it, because for me to make it right to my customer is the most important. And, you can't do that all the time. Obviously, you have to have some checks and balances and that sort of thing. But just taking care of your customer is, when you go above and beyond, then you will have a customer for life. But if you basically push back and say, well, it's your fault, sorry, that experience is not going, even though it is their fault, it's not going to leave a good taste in their mouth. But if you help them through their mistake and you work with them on it, then the reward can be huge.
There's a grocery store in the South. The name is not coming to me. They have these giant rocks sitting out in front. And it says, rule number 1, the customer is always right. And it says, rule number 2, if the customer is wrong, refer to rule number 1.
Very true. Very true.
I love hearing that. The other thing I picked up in everything was your working with your competitors, cooperating with your competitors. And we call that co-opetition. You also said no means not yet or something. We always say no means negotiation or not yet or something else, but don't take no for an answer. I loved that part as well. How do people find out more about your business?
So we are pretty heavy on Facebook, social media, Monkeys on the Run, or Rob Speedy Delivery. Also our website, monkeysontheRun.com. And they can always call me on my cell phone.
Okay. We're going to put all that in our show notes so they can get a hold of you. Everybody's going to go on and Monkeys on the Run. Who wouldn't like Monkeys on the Run, right? I mean, no matter what it is, whatever it does, it's just a great name. I love it. Okay. And so, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, to share. It's wonderful to be able to see a rural business that has grown and scaled. And logistics is so tough for lots of small rural businesses. It's how do I get out of my town to the next town? We were working with someone in Burns who's making, they make kimchi, sauerkraut, fermented foods, and, shipping those out of Burns here's a perishable refrigerated product. I'm trying to figure out how to reach markets. They're in Bend now, they're in Portland now, but it's hard. And I love how you've taken and found profitable opportunity in what some people would look at as real reasons not to do business in rural. Is you're a long ways away from everything. There's logistics challenges. It's hard to get stuff to all these small towns. And you've been able to take that challenge and make it into a profitable business. And not only a profitable business, you've been able to give back to your community in so many different ways to make your community stronger. And I applaud you for that. I mean, that is just, music to our ears about how, we talk about how do we reinvent rural? How do we make rural stronger and better? And what's it like to start a small business in a rural community? And, there's resources out there like NEOEDD and Co-Starters and Kiva US loans. So, there's never been a better time right now to start a small business, even if it's a hobby that you're kind of wondering if, you've sold to a few friends and now you want to take it to the next level and sell to some people that aren't your friends. And then, pretty soon it's a side gig and you're making a little money and then you're looking at it thinking, hey, maybe I can make this a full-time gig and have my own business. And I don't think there's been a better time than today. What would you say to that?
I agree 100%. I think it's, I don't think I could ever go back and work for somebody else again. I mean, I did the workforce for a long time. And, I started working at a young age. I was, not raised with a silver spoon. I was raised with a wooden spoon on my behind. It was definitely one of those things. We wanted stuff. We worked our tails off, started working in a restaurant at 14 and never stopped working. So, I think, dreams can be obtained and you just have to turn dreams into goals and goals into reality.
Well, Kat Dooley, thank you so much for the time. This was awesome.
Thanks for listening to The Rural Blueprint. If today's conversation resonated with you, visit us at reinventingrural.com to access resources for rural entrepreneurs, funding opportunities, and business development programs. I'm Brad with Reinventing Rural, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rural Blueprint.